Time today. Uh, just for information's sake, Senate Bill 42 is going to be moved till next week's agenda. So there's a slight technical change we need to make on that bill. Before we get started, are there any guests we'd like to recognize? I've got a couple in the back that I'd like to recognize, and then I'll see if anybody else has any guests. Back in the back, we have it's United Way Day at the Capitol, and we have three ladies from Henderson that are back there advocating for United Way: Melissa Clements, Rhonda Thompson, and Kelsey Dunham. If they would stand up and if we would welcome them to our committee today. Thank you, ladies. Any other visitors in the okay? Oh, Senator Storm.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to introduce everyone to Grayson Martin, who's 11-year-old from Bush Elementary, and he's in the 5th grade. He's up here today. He'll be paging for me in the Senate, and his mother, Meredith, is here in the audience.
Thank you. Any other guests? All right. Madam Clerk, if you could call the roll. Looks like we got several more here.
Senator Berg.
Present.
Senator Harper Angel. Senator Mays Bledsoe. Senator McDaniel. Senator Storm.
Here.
Senator Thayer. Senator Wheeler. Senator Williams. Senator Nemus.
Present.
Senator Mills.
I'm here. We have a quorum, and we're duly constituted to do business. For those that just walked in, we are not doing Senate Bill 42 today. We'll do that possibly next week. And Senator West has requested for his schedule's sake to go first, and I've allowed him, out of our great friendship, to go first. Senator West, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate the opportunity. What you should have before you is Senate Bill 65. We present this. I think this is the third year in a row we've presented this bill. We've kept the same number every year, Senate Bill 65. This started 2020, 2021, that area, as a way to put some teeth back into the administrative regs process. So as chair of the Administrative Reg Committee, we review a lot of regulations. And the way the process would work before is we would find those regs deficient. If we found a reg deficient, the governor would put it into place, and nothing would really ever happen to go against the cabinet or administration. So we did this. What this bill simply does is it finds null and void any regulation that went through that process. It's an exhaustive process. Any reg that was found deficient. And so if we pass this out of committee and it passes off the floor, then all the regs preceding to that during that year that were found deficient will hereby be null and void. Okay. So,
Senator West, can I stop you there? There is a committee sub. If we could adopt the committee sub. And
On the sub. Second.
we have a motion and a second on the sub. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The sub is adopted. Senator West.
the reason for the sub is we had our bill teed up, and we had one regulation in the bill, and yesterday in committee we found a set of regs deficient. So we're just simply adding those regs yesterday that we found deficient to this bill. And that's how the process works. That's it in a nutshell. I'm open to any questions anyone may have.
Senator Berg has a question.
Thank you, sir. And this is, I'm sure, just because I haven't been here long enough to know. Before this, when we found a reg deficient, what happened? Besides, that itself did not make it null and void. It had to go back somewhere.
Basically nothing. The committee, we would find a reg deficient, and we would send a strongly worded letter to the governor, imploring him not to, go forward with that regulation. And like I said, there was really no teeth in the committee, to exercise our opinion on these regulations. Another important point that I forgot to mention, in this bill, we're finding null and void 7 regulations, and really only 2 subject matter areas. So we had 1 regulation we found deficient in the interim, and yesterday we found 6 regulations deficient, but it was really 1 subject matter area. So we had 541 regulations go through the committee, and only 2 subject matter areas found deficient. So it's not like we're stopping the governor from implementing his agenda or implementing regs and laws. We've only really found 2 subject matter areas deficient, and this is just a way to make sure the full intent of the legislature is carried out.
A follow-up, sir, if I may.
Yes, you may. Yep.
What is the subject matters that we're having problems with right now?
So the subject matter of the interim committee was a labor employer-employee relationship, a workers' comp reg. And the ones we did yesterday basically deal with Medicaid. And we can go into a whole discussion on that process, but I'm going to sum it up in 30 seconds. We had a lot of savings from Senate Bill 50, which was the PBM law championed by Max Centerwise. And the cabinet felt that they just automatically were taking those savings, about $38 million, and expanding those to vision and dental care across the Commonwealth. We had a lot of practitioners that have approached us and said, our reimbursement rates aren't high enough anyway, so even if you put money into this area, maybe more services won't be provided because there's not enough providers. And it was a huge change, really, that should have been done we felt through statute, through involving the legislature. The total cost was like $89 million. So the argument was made that you guys, hey, you're appropriating money. You're just taking this money and moving it around. And so we found the regs deficient for a multitude of reasons, but that's why we found those deficient. And there was much discussion. I think it was all aye votes and 1 pass vote, so it was pretty clear. So,
Senator Thayer has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As a member of the Administrative Regs Committee that Chairman West runs and a former chairman of the committee, when the committee on behalf of the legislature expresses its opinion that the reg is deficient, the only choice that the legislature has is to pass a bill in the next session. I think this is a much better approach, and so I would move for favorable expression on Senate Bill 65.
We have a motion. Is there a second? We have a motion, second. Senator Nemes has a question.
I'd like to actually make a comment.
Sure.
I worked in the administration under Governor Bevin, and we put forth many regulations, and it was a fact that we said, well, if we don't get them through, it's just a little slap on the hand. We'll change a word or two and do it anyway. So this isn't Republican or Democrat. It's doing what the Senate is supposed, the regulation review is supposed to do, actually review regulations. So,
and I think even under Governor Bevin, we found some regs deficient, right? Correct.
And we went around and did them anyway. Yes, thank you.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Byrd, Senator Harper Angel, Senator Mays Bledsoe, Senator McDaniel, Senator Nemes,
Aye.
Senator Storm,
Aye.
Senator Thayer, Senator Wheeler,
Aye.
Senator Williams, Senator Mills.
I vote aye. Senate Bill 65 passes 9-0, and it passes with favorable expression. And thank you, sir. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of
Got
the
lost
committee.
in my notes. Thanks. Next is Senate Bill 62. Senator Westerfield is here. Oh, I know. I got lost in my notes. Senator Westerfield, thank you so much for being here. The floor is yours to explain your bill.
And members, you also have a committee sub that's before you.
There's a committee sub. Is there a motion on that to adopt it? Have a motion is in a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The committee sub is adopted. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you for that. Senate Bill 62 is a privacy bill intended to protect the privacy of donors to nonprofit organizations. There was a decision back in 2021 by the U.S. Supreme Court in Americans for Prosperity versus Bonta, Bonta being the Attorney General for California, wherein the Supreme Court struck down, reversed and remanded on a law out of California that compelled major donors of nonprofits to be disclosed to the state, particularly to the state Attorney General. The Ninth Circuit actually upheld that, if I understand correctly, but the U.S. Supreme Court threw it back down and said, you can't do that. You can't have your private donors, for whomever, whatever your organization is, you can't be compelled to turn that over to the state. That's an abridgment of your First Amendment freedom of association. This bill codifies that ruling, protecting the donors and supporters of nonprofit organizations here in the Commonwealth from that sort of government reaching. There are some exceptions and carve-outs where there are, for litigation, for investigations. The committee sub that you have before you makes a change requested by the Legislative Ethics Commission, which brought up a very good point. Yesterday shot me an email and said, nonprofits can hire lobbyists, and if one of us as legislators were to donate to a nonprofit in violation of some ethics standards that we have, they ought to be able to identify that for the purposes of that investigation. That's a pretty reasonable request. So the committee sub made that change. There was also some language in there in the committee sub after speaking with the Auditor of Public Accounts. There was some language that we hoped at one point to put in there, but that would have made the Auditor of Public Accounts run afoul of federal laws. We didn't put that language in. But that's the sub before you, and I'd ask for your support.
Senator Wheeler has a question or comment.
Just real quick, you said there was a Supreme Court decision stating that they're not required to disclose all this. So why do we need a statute?
Because California, you could go back to 1958 in the NAACP versus Alabama decision. The Supreme Court stomped on the state Supreme Court at the time, thankfully, and said you can't force the NAACP to turn over your membership rolls. And yet, 70 years later, California's trying to do it. We want to make sure that same thing doesn't happen here.
Okay, and I just maybe I misunderstood your commentary. I thought you were kind of told that they got slapped down, that they said you cannot compel that.
The U.S. Supreme Court did in the Bonta decision. The U.S. Supreme Court did in 1958. But to your question, even in the face of that NAACP decision from 1958, there was still a state trying to get information. In this case, they're major donors to nonprofits in California. We think the protections ought to be here just out of an abundance of caution to make sure no one tries, whether through law or through some administrative act, by executive order or any other means, to go after nonprofits that particular executive officer doesn't like.
Okay. Fair enough.
Any other questions? Any follow-ups? Okay. If there aren't any further questions, the motion will be in order related to Senate Bill 62 as amended by a committee sub. We have a motion from Senator Wheeler. Is there a second? We have a second from Senator Storm. Madam Clerk, please call the roll. Who did? Oh, Nemus did, sorry.
Senator Byrd, Senator Harper Angel, Senator Mays Bledsoe, Senator McDaniel, Senator Nemus,
Aye.
Senator Storm,
Aye.
Senator Thayer, Senator Wheeler,
Aye.
Senator Williams, Senator Mills.
I vote aye. And Senate Bill 62 is amended by committee sub. 1 is adopted or is approved 9-0. Same shall pass on to our Senate process.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, members.
The agenda is Senate Bill 52, which Senator Nemus is going to come down and present, and I believe he has some folks with him as well. Senator Nemus, when you get settled in, the floor is yours. If you could introduce your guest and explain their bill.
I'm Senator Nemes from District 38, Bullitt County in South Jefferson, and I'll have my guest introduce himself.
Oh, there we go. Okay. Yes, sir. My name is Frank Friday, Jefferson County Clerk's Office, Director of Government Affairs.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, and members of the committee, this is a pretty simple bill, and it only affects Louisville Metro, nowhere else in the state. It's about storage fees. Now they're collected by the county clerk, handed to fiscal court, and put into a special fund until the county clerk asks for the portions back to use. This bill will lessen red tape by having the county clerk put it in a special fund, ending the red tape of going to fiscal court and then asking for it back from fiscal court. The county clerk will report to fiscal court and the LRC, so there's no worry about them doing something wrong with the funds. The fiscal impact of Senate Bill 52 on consolidated local government is expected to be minimally positive, and that doesn't take into account the less of the red tape and the cost of administering going back and forth from fiscal court back to the county clerk. That's simple. That's it.
Okay, we have a motion from Senator Wheeler. Is there a second? We have a second from Senator Storm. Are there any questions or concerns from the committee? If not, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Byrd, Senator Harper Angel, Senator Mays Bledsoe, Senator McDaniel, Senator Nemes,
Aye.
Senator Storm,
Aye.
Senator Thayer, Senator Wheeler, Senator Williams, Senator Mills.
I vote aye. Senate Bill 52 passes with favorable expression 9-0. And that concludes our agenda. We have 3 items on the agenda, and we moved right on out of here. So thank you so much, committee members. We will see you next week. We stand adjourned.